The rain was hammering down, a relentless drumbeat against the roof of my little craftsman home. The kind of storm that makes you want to curl up with a whiskey and forget the world exists. But there was no forgetting tonight. Not when I pulled into my driveway, wipers slashing through the downpour, and saw her Cara gleaming white BMW, smug as its owner parked inside my garage. Karen. HOA Karen. The woman who'd been terrorizing our cul-de-sac for years with her clipboard tyranny. Her sanctimonious emails about community standards. Her hawk-eyed patrols for untrimmed hedges or mailboxes half a shade off regulation beige. Now, she'd crossed a line. My garage. My sanctuary. My space. I sat there, engine idling, fists clenched around the steering wheel. The air thick with the sour tang of wet asphalt and my own rising fury. This wasn't just a parking violation. This was war. I killed the engine and stepped out. Rain soaking through my jacket in seconds, plastering my hair to my skull. The garage door was half open. Just enough for her to have backed that obnoxious car inside. Like she owned the place. My tools. My workbench. My half-finished kayak project all shoved aside to make room for her gleaming throne. A note was taped to the driver's side window, flapping in the wind. Her loopy handwriting smug even in ink. Emergency parking due to storm. HOA Rule 17b permits temporary use of neighbor facilities. Be understanding. Mark. Understanding. I snorted, the sound drowned by a crack of thunder. Karen didn't know me at all if she thought I'd roll over for this. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and old coffee, the kind of lived-in comfort I'd fought to keep after the divorce. I paced the kitchen, boots leaving wet smears on the hardwood, my breath uneven. Every HOA meeting flashed through my mind, Karen's nasal voice lecturing about grass height. Her smirk when she fined Mrs. Delgado for her kids' chalk drawings. The way she'd reported my dog, Scout, for excessive barking when he'd just been chasing squirrels. And now, this, my garage, my last bastion of peace. I could hear her voice in my head, dripping with fake sweetness. It's for the good of the community. Mark. Screw the community. I grabbed my phone, ready to call a tow truck. But then I stopped. A tow truck was too easy, too clean. Karen needed to feel this. That's when I saw it. Out back by the shed. The stack of bricks I'd bought for a patio project. Sitting under a tarp. Glinting wet in the porch light. An idea sparked. Wild and reckless. Like the lightning splitting the sky. I could almost hear the satisfying clink of brick on brick. The weight of mortar in my hands. My pulse thrummed. A low drumbeat of defiance. Karen wanted to play dirty. I played dirtier. The rain was a cold slap as I hauled the bricks to the garage. One armful at a time. The rough edges biting into my palms. The storm masked the noise grunts. The scrape of brick against concrete. The slosh of mortar as I mixed it in a bucket I'd found under the workbench. My hands moved on autopilot, laying the first row across the garage door's opening. Each brick a small act of rebellion. The air was thick with the mineral scent of wet cement, the kind that sticks in your throat. And my breath came in sharp huffs, fogging in the chilly night. I didn't care that it was past midnight. I didn't care that my shirt was soaked, clinging to my back like a second skin. All I could see was Karen's face when she realized her precious BMW was trapped. Halfway through the second row. Headlights swept across the driveway. My heart lurched. But it wasn't Karen. It was Javier, the quiet guy from 2 houses down. His pickup truck idling as he rolled down his window. Rain dripping off his baseball cap. Yo, Mark. What the hell you doing out here? His voice was low, cautious, but his eyes flicked to the bricks, then to Karen's car, and a slow grin spread across his face. Oh, damn. She finally pushed you too far. I wiped sweat or maybe rain from my brow, mortar smearing across my knuckles. She parked in my garage. Javi. My garage. My voice cracked, raw with the kind of anger that's been simmering too long. Javier chuckled. a sound like gravel under tires, and hopped out of his truck. "Lemme help. Karen's been riding my ass about my fence posts for months." He didn't wait for an answer, just grabbed a brick and started laying it with a precision that told me he'd done this before. We worked in silence. The only sounds the storm's roar and the rhythmic thunk of bricks slotting into place. Javier's presence was a surprise, a lifeline I hadn't expected, and for the first time that night, I felt like I wasn't alone in this fight. By 3 a.m., the wall was Donia solid, ugly barrier of brick and mortar sealing the garage door shut. Karen's BMW was a prisoner, this chrome bumper glinting faintly through the gaps in the half-open door. I stepped back, chest heaving, the rain washing mortar dust from my hands. Javier clapped me on the shoulder, his grin wide enough to light up the dark. "You're a legend, man. But she's gonna lose her mind when she sees this." I nodded, a grim satisfaction settling in my gut. Let her scream. Let her rage. I was done playing nice. Morning came, gray and heavy, the storm reduced to a drizzle. I was on my second coffee, the bitter burn of it grounding me, when I heard her, Karen's voice, shrill as a fire alarm, cut through the quiet of the cul-de-sac. Mark, what is this? Open this door right now." I stepped onto the porch, mug in hand, and there she wazard-faced, hair frizzing in the damp air, fists pounding on my new brick wall. Her yoga pants were pristine, her designer raincoat flapping like a cape, but her eyes were wild, unhinged. "You can't do this. This is vandalism. I'll call the police. I'll sue you." I leaned against the porch railing, the wood creaking under my weight, and took a slow sip of coffee. "You parked in my garage, Karen, without asking. You think you own this neighborhood." My voice was calm, but inside, my heart was a jackhammer. Neighbors were starting to peek out Mrs. Delgado from her window, Javier leaning against his truck, even old Mr. Thompson with his walker, all watching the showdown. Karen's face went from red to purple, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. It was an emergency. Rule 17B. There's no Rule 17B. I cut her off, stepping closer, my boots crunching on the wet gravel. I checked. "You made it up. Just like you make up half the crap you fine people for." A murmur rippled through the neighbors, a soft hum of agreement. Karen's eyes darted around, realizing she was losing her audience. She jabbed a manicured finger at me. "You'll regret this, Mark. I'm calling my lawyer." "Go ahead," I said, my voice low, steady. "But your car's staying put until you apologize. To me, to Mrs. Delgado for her kid's chalk, to Javier for his fence, to everyone you've bullied." The crowd was growing now, faces I hadn't seen in months, all nodding, whispering. Karen's reign was crumbling, and she knew it. She let out a scream, a raw, guttural sound that echoed off the houses, and stormed off, her raincoat flapping like a defeated flag. By noon, the police showed up. 2 officers, one young and bored, the other older with a tired sigh in his voice. They looked at the brick wall, Karen's car, at her still damp note, and then at me. "You really bricked her car in there?" the older one asked, almost amused. I nodded, arms crossed. "She parked in my garage without permission." I figured this was creative problem solving. The younger cop snorted, but the older one just shook his head. "Technically, it's your property, but you're gonna have to let her get the car out. Eventually." Eventually, I agreed, a smirk tugging at my lips. Karen was back now, hovering behind the officers, her phone out, probably live-streaming her victimhood to her HOA cronies. But the neighbors weren't buying it. Mrs. Delgado stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "She fined my kids for drawing hearts on the sidewalk." "Hearts?" Javier chimed in, She tried to get my dog impounded for digging in my yard. One by one, the stories poured out. A flood of grievances long suppressed. The cops exchanged a look, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am," the older one said, "sounds like you've got some community relations to work on." Took 3 days for Karen to cave. 3 days of her car trapped, of neighbors whispering and laughing, of her precious HOA authority unraveling. She showed up at my door. No raincoat this time, just a defeated slump in her shoulders. "Fine," she muttered, barely meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry. To you. To them. Can you take the wall down now?" I studied her. The way her hands twitched. The way her voice cracked just a little. I could have pushed harder. Made her grovel. But I didn't. Justice wasn't about humiliation, it was about balance. Javier and I dismantled the wall that afternoon. Brick by brick. The clink of them stacking back in the pile, a kind of music. Karen's BMW rolled out. And scathed but somehow less smug. She didn't look at me as she drove off. And I didn't care. The cul-de-sac felt lighter. Like the air after a storm clears. Mrs. Delgado brought me tamales that night. Javier cracked open a beer. And for the first time in years, the neighborhood felt like a home again. Karen could keep her clipboard. Her rules. Her petty power trips. But she'd never park in my garage again. And that was victory enough.